How do you know if your church broadcast mix is winning? The answer might surprise you. It doesn't look like we're going to be done with streaming at church anytime soon. But if you've just gotten started and you're not thrilled with your results, I'm going to give you 5 levels of quality so that you can rank yourself and know where you're going. Hey, if you're new here, I'm here to help you make every worship mix an enjoyable one. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe, ding the little bell, and turn your notifications on to all. I mean, you wouldn't want to miss any of these bad jokes, would you? The first level of streaming quality is as good as AM radio. I mean, if it sounds bad and a little distorted, but people can tell what's going on the other end, you are winning. If you got it all hooked up right and somebody on the other end can listen, reach up, bend at the elbow, and pat yourself on the back. You have been doing a good job. You're already light years ahead of anybody in 1920. What you're doing wasn't even conceivable 100 years ago, so give yourself some slack if it still stinks. Now, why do I call this success? Well, to me, success is not in comparing, but in your trajectory. How much are you improving and where are you making it better? I teach my kids this all the time. Comparison steals joy. Either you're depressed because somebody else is better, or you're puffed up with pride because you think you're better than somebody else. You can't compare yourself to Bethel, Elevation Worship, or even the church down the street and still keep a joyful heart. Of course, we want to have a vision for the future, and we need churches like that to push the boundaries in creativity and technology. It's an awesome thing, but just don't get stuck comparing yourself to them. You just gotta start right where you're at. All right, the second level of quality is where things have stopped distorting, the red lights are bad, and the dynamic range is under control so that people aren't having to turn it up and down on the other end. What that means is that the speaking levels are about the same average level as the music. Typically with a live mix, there's about a 10 to 20 dB difference between the two. So you're gonna have to compensate for that so that people on the other end aren't turning it up and turning it down throughout the service. When you're at this second tier, there might still be a whole lot of things going wrong, but people can understand you're not distorting and they're not turning it up and down on the other end. You might still be having trouble with the balance between your band and your vocals, or the instruments might not sound very good or totally disappear on some devices. Or it might be drowning in reverb or totally dry. But the point is, people on the other end can participate still, and that's winning. To get from level 1 to level 2, you have to understand your metering and you have to understand the routing on the console so that you can send more level of the speaking mics compared to the worship band. If you need some ideas for how to set up your console to do stuff like this, check out this video over here. Now your third level is where your mix sounds just as good as the band does. Not every church has pro-level musicians, and great tone starts at the source. You can't fix up what isn't there, and if your musicians aren't giving you a great performance, your mix is going to suffer no matter how awesome of an engineer you are. But even if your band still needs to grow in their musicianship, you can still do your part to get all the pieces right and give them a clear picture of where they're doing well and where they can improve, if you know what I mean. Your job is to get the balance right, to get the EQ right, and to get their dynamics right. And add effects too, but we'll talk about that more in just a second. The distance between the second and third levels is a pretty long one, and it can take a long time to learn all the tools to get the mix where you need it to go. If you can mix pretty well at front of house, you can probably mix pretty solid for broadcast at this level. You still have to learn the difference between a good broadcast mix and a good front of house mix. It takes knowing what a great mix should sound like and then the tools to get it there. Now, it's important to understand what you can fix and what you can't fix. You can fix tone to some extent. That's what EQ is for. And you can fix dynamic range. That's what compression is for. You can add some space with some reverb and delay to make it feel like somebody's not playing guitar right up in your ear. That would be awkward. But one thing that you can't fix is bad timing. If your band doesn't play in time well together, no amount of mixing is going to fix that. In the studio, it's possible, but it's still not fun. And that's kind of the bummer about a broadcast mix, is it puts a microscope on everything, and it's not always for the better. Level 4 on our way to a fantastic broadcast mix is when it sounds as good as your band, it sounds good on different devices, and the reverb and delays are set up so that it matches what you're seeing on screen with what you're hearing with your ears. Learning to make a mix translate is a big challenge, even when you've had a lot of experience at front of house. If you've ever mixed for a recording, you've probably experienced where you bounce it down, take it to your car and listen, and it sounds way, way off. Either the bass is way too loud, non-existent, and you're scratching your head wondering how it could be so wrong when it felt so right. Or you play it on your phone and suddenly the electric guitar is way louder than before. Learning to translate takes repetition of trial and error. You have to be able to make notes of what it sounds like other places compared to your listening system or your headphones. This way, when you listen on different systems, the notes cancel each other out. This system has too much bass, this system has too little bass. This system, the vocal's too far out in front, this system, the vocal's too far in back. When you learn how to make a mix that sounds good everywhere and know how it sounds on your monitoring system, it's much easier to get there faster. Your monitoring system, which also might include your room acoustics, plays a big role in how well your mixes can translate from one system to another. There's a lot of other problems that can come up with your studio monitors. I talk about how to set them up in this video over here. If you're just mixing in headphones, it can be so easy to hear every single detail that it's hard to really judge the level relationships for the important things and the not so important things. It's like everything kind of gets flattened out and you can hear all the details so well that nothing feels buried or feels too far out in front. In live sound, we have a lot of noise to contend with, so as long as we can get the vocal up and out in front of the band, we're all happy. But for a stream, we have to make sure that the vocal isn't too far out in front, otherwise it just feels like it's hanging out in the middle of space with nothing to support it. Now, if this is making sense so far, type translate in the comments down below. Now, when it comes to reverb, our brains are a timing supercomputer, which you might be fooled by that if you ever watched me try to play the drums, but it's true. We learn a whole lot about the space that we're in and the direction where things are around us based on the timing between our two ears. So if you see someone on screen in a giant worship venue, but their vocal is super dry and in your face, it creates a disconnect in your brain even if you can't put your finger on why. Now, you could become a sound ninja at tweaking the parameters on your reverb and delay to really match the size and the feeling of your room, or you could just put up crowd mics. I talk about how to set those up in this video over here. Filter out the top and bottom end and mix them in just enough and you'll feel like you're in the same space. It's kind of funny how that works. Now, before we go on to level 5, I've got a free download for you. It's called How to Lead Your Church Audio Stream Team. I'll put a link down in the description below. Now, level 5 is where you're doing all these things, but you're actually making your band sound better than they sound by themselves. The simplest way to do this is with Antares Auto Tune or Waves Tune Real Time. Vocal tuning live makes an okay singer sound good and a good singer sound great. There's something really pleasing about vocals that are really locked in on their pitch, and we've gotten used to hearing vocals that are really in tune, so it's kind of distracting when we hear them and they're not in tune. It's not that the singers are bad. Singing live is really hard. It just helps correct some of that pitch and make sure that it's right in the center all the time. Unless they sing closer to the wrong note, but that's another topic. Another way to make your band sound better than they are is to add things. On the bass, they might just be giving you a clean, direct signal, but sometimes you need a little bit of dirt and grit on that bass to really fill up the mid-range. You can send the bass on an aux send to an amp simulator and mix in that distortion as needed to really round out your mix. You'll be surprised at how well that one works. If you're mixing inside a digital audio workstation, another option is to mix in drum samples to either augment or replace your kick and snare sounds. This can keep your mix feeling rock solid, so that every kick hit is right in place where it should be. The only trick here is that you've got to mix in the original snare mics if they start doing rolls or cadences or something. But if they're just playing a straight beat, it makes it a whole lot easier to get a really killer kick and snare sound right off the bat. Then you can worry about other things like tuning vocals. The other thing you've got to look out for here is latency with the plugin itself. You'll want to add input delay to your other drum mics so that they match the timing of the samples. If there's quite a bit of latency, you might also delay your other instrument and vocal groups so that the timing is a little bit tighter. Now that you know what the road looks like on your way to becoming a streaming sound ninja, comment below and tell me where you are and what you're working on to get to the next level. Remember, your success in church audio is how you're improving, not in comparison. And your success in life is being loved by God and loving Him back. That's it for this one. If this was helpful for you, don't forget to mash thumbs up, subscribe, ding the little bell, and share this with a friend. And remember, it's all about the low end, avoid the sound tech solo, and nobody leaves church humming the kick drum. We'll see you back here next time.